Hi guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video on Myth of Empires. So this isn't the first time taking a look at this game, but since some more combat footage has actually recently been released, I thought it was about time we took a revisit to the game to take a little bit of a closer look and see what the combat actually looks like so far, to see if this is a game that we should be getting hyped about or one that we should perhaps be considering giving a miss. For those of you who missed the video the first time around about Myth of Empires, the game is a large-scale medieval Chinese MMO in which players can take part in things like large-scale siege battles, commanding AI units, building and using siege equipment. And there's obvious similarities between Conquest Blade, and that was kind of the comparison I made in the last video, but there's also a lot of Bannerlord and Mountain Blade aspects to the game as well. But there is a much more of an MMO side to the game when compared to Conquest Blade, with things like building your own fort. And we actually see some of this in the footage, and apparently every piece is to be placed by the player. So each fort design should actually be pretty unique, which is actually kind of one of the more cool aspects of the game. There's also going to be things like farming, mining, animal taming and building, and all the key professions you'd expect from an open world MMO. We actually get to see a bit more of the crafting system from some of the footage that has recently been released. We get to see some of the farming and the kind of time related aspect that it takes to grow crops, as well as actually seeing some of the crafting menus, which kind of remind me a little bit of Last Oasis, although I do kind of feel like some of these menus could actually do with a little bit of smartening up. I think the UI as a whole kind of needs a little bit of work to make it look a little bit sort of smoother, and I think that will go a long way to improving the initial appearance of the game. So what about the combat side of things? We got some footage from the Skirmish game mode, which is sort of hero versus hero style, instanced battle game mode, as well as getting some more footage from the siege battles. We don't yet know though if there is going to be an instant siege battle mode like the Skirmish version, but we do know that in the main MMO part of the game, sieges are going to play a huge role in who gets to control the territory. The winner of the siege is going to keep or gain control over the county, as well as the resources that are contained within it. So we can expect guilds to play a major role in attempting to take and hold land in this game. I think these big MMO style sieges are going to kind of be similar to the territory wars in Conquest Blade, where these intense fights are going to be breaking out over the most important areas of control. But of course, in theory, the forts players are both attacking and defending are the ones that have been built by the players themselves. I also liked the fact that one aspect of the footage that I thought looked really good was the building of the siege equipment. We get to see it being constructed in front of the castle, from catapults to siege towers, and being used against these destructible forts to try and gain entrance, to try and fight their way in. From the player's combat point of view, we know the game employs a directional attacking and blocking system, very similar to a game like Mountain Blade. So by that I mean, if an enemy swings a sword to your right hand side, you have to move your mouse and block to the right hand side. Just blocking in the middle is not going to save you. I think this is probably a good thing because it adds an element of skill based combat to the game, and this is certainly something that Conquest Blade doesn't have in terms of a directional blocking system. But my only concern on this would be that it does make the game quite fast paced, and so ping is going to be a really important factor in being able to block these incoming attacks and see them coming. So I'm hoping they're going to be having EU servers, because otherwise I think it may end up being a bit of an issue. We also see that currently the game and its weaponry is predominantly Chinese focused, with lots of glaives, spears and halberds, which is very understandable. It is, after all, a Chinese game. But to take Conqueror's Blade as an example, whilst there are a good number of Chinese units and weapons, we also have many Western style units and weapons introduced into the game, so this does help it to appeal a lot more to a Western audience. Whilst we get to see a lot of the player versus player combat, it is quite hard to work out how much of a role the AI is going to play in the siege battles. We already know that you're going to be able to command these AI troops in battle, but also make use of them for more menial tasks, such as cutting wood, mining resources, or operating equipment in your village to help with the production of food, weapons, building and so on. It is, after all, at its core, an MMO. We also know they could be used as soldiers, with their quality being determined by the level of the training and equipment you provide for them. but as of yet we've not been able to work out the actual sort of maximum cap for army size in battle. You know, how many men can you actually bring with you to the fight? I'd also have a few concerns about the amount of cavalry we can see in some of the combat footage. We'd all want the game to be, you know, a good mix of infantry, cavalry and archers, but hopefully it just doesn't turn into an all-out cavalry spam war with it being sort of the dominant unit, as it does slightly look like that could be a bit of an issue from some of the skirmish combat footage we see. But of course the game is still very much in its early development stage, so I'm sure there are going to be a lot of balance adjustments and changes yet to come. So from what we've seen so far, I think we can certainly consider that this is quite an interesting project with a lot of potential. I think my opinion on it has shifted a little bit away from just a combat game, and I think I'm going to start describing it more of an empire builder. I guess it's got that much more MMO aspects to it than Conqueror's Blade. And I know I kind of keep drawing the comparison back to Conqueror's Blade, but I think a lot of people are going to compare this to Conqueror's Blade. And of course, since I spend most of my life in Conqueror's Blade, it's kind of natural for me to make that comparison. But I certainly think it's a game that is well worth following, and I think so far the footage we've seen has not put me off from that. But we have all been here before and got excited for games that have just turned out to be, you know, well, a little bit crap. And also, as I said last time, you know, I've heard from a few people over in China that it's actually a pretty experienced team that has been working on the game, that is kind of behind it. And while it looks like the studio is kind of the new kid on the block, they actually have a pretty decent amount of knowledge and experience behind them, and hopefully they can continue to put this into the game and continue to make progress. I think we've seen a lot of criticism around some of the audio they've used, which, you know, has been very similar or the same as Mount & Blade. I'm really hoping these are just sort of placeholder audio files. And some of the animations again have been similar, but I'm just hoping these are placeholders while they work on their own animations, because this is something that is going to be really critical to take this away from a clone game into a standalone game, and really hope they take that on board and understand that. Either way, it is certainly one of the games that I'm going to be following pretty closely, and I'm hoping that we're going to get a date for the closed beta, because I would love to be able to actually get in game, try out some of the features and really sort of get my hands on it, and then hopefully I'll be able to bring you guys a more accurate opinion, plus some more up-to-date footage on the combat and particularly the building mechanics and the MMO side of the game, because that's something that I'm probably more curious about in a way than the combat side of things, because I think the combat from the footage we've seen is going to be fine. It's the MMO aspect that actually kind of makes me more curious. But anyway, that is all we've got time for today. Hopefully you have enjoyed the video. If you've got any thoughts on this game, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. And we will obviously be having more videos and news on this game as it comes out, so do of course subscribe to the channel for lots more Myth of Empires content. Thanks for watching guys, and I shall see you all on the next one.